My name is Lauren Whitaker. I'm 29 years old, and a month ago, I walked out of my family's house in Columbus, Ohio without saying a word. Not because I was angry, not to prove anything, but because my father looked me in the eye and said, "You've ruined this family," and everyone else just nodded. My mother, Judith Whitaker, lowered her eyes and started clearing plates. My older brother Aaron sat back in his chair with his arms crossed like a verdict had just been passed. And my younger sister Bree didn't say anything, but she didn't need to. She never did. That Sunday evening I left behind the casserole I'd brought, the financial folders I'd printed, and the silence I had swallowed for 29 years. No shouting, no storming out, just keys in my hand coat on and the front door closing behind me. No one followed me. No one called that night. But 30 days later, 53 missed calls, 26 voicemails, 92 texts. And not one of them said, "I'm sorry." Now, before I tell you what happened after I left, you need to understand what led me to sit at that dinner table for the last time, hoping that this time maybe they'd finally see me. They didn't. But I still don't know what hurt more, that they blamed me, or that I almost believed them. Why does it take leaving to finally hear the truth? I was 6 years old, the first time I was blamed for something I didn't do. Aaron, he was 9, then had knocked over a lamp while chasing Bree through the living room. I was in the kitchen coloring a picture of a horse. But when the crash came and Mom ran in with that sharp inhale of panic, Aaron didn't miss a beat. Lauren did it. That was all it took. No questions, no checking. Just my mother's disappointed voice and the sound of a vacuum cleaning up what had never been mine to fix. And that became the pattern. If Bree forgot her lunch, I was too loud that morning and distracted everyone. If Dad came home in a mood, I must have left the thermostat too high again. If Aaron skipped curfew, it was because I made him look bad by always being so responsible. Our house sat on a quiet street in Upper Arlington, a leafy neighborhood just west of downtown Columbus. From the outside, we were the kind of family that fit in neatly trimmed hedges, 4th of July flags, Sunday church. Inside, we were polite, civil, controlled. But there were rules no one wrote down. Don't contradict Dad. Don't outshine Bree. Don't talk about things that make anyone uncomfortable. I learned early how to disappear without leaving the room. I kept my report cards to myself. I dressed safely. I didn't cry at funerals, not even when my grandmother died, and I found her recipe cards tucked inside my backpack with a note in her handwriting. "You see people clearly, Lauren. Don't ever let them tell you otherwise." I kept that note. I still have it. By middle school, I was the kid teachers called mature for her age. By high school, I was the one organizing the blood drives, running the debate team, earning scholarships. And yet, when I told my family I'd been accepted to Northwestern on a full ride, the only response I remember is from my mother. "That's far. Bree's going to miss you. No congratulations, no pride. Just concern for how my leaving would affect someone else." It wasn't just what they said. It was the things they never said. No one asked what I wanted to study. No one helped me move. No one called the night I first cried in a dorm room 500 miles from home. And when I came back to visit, it was as if I'd never left until something went wrong. Then suddenly, I'd become the thread that unraveled everything. "Ever since Lauren moved away, things haven't been the same," Dad muttered once at Thanksgiving. Bree added, "It's like you think you're better than us now." I didn't think I was better. I just thought maybe I could finally become myself. But I was wrong. Because in this family, the moment I stopped apologizing, I became the problem. When my dad started having heart problems 2 years ago, I did what daughters are expected to do. I packed up my Chicago apartment, took a leave of absence from the agency, and moved back to Ohio, temporarily, I told myself. Just long enough to help get him through recovery. Just long enough to prove I still belonged. They didn't ask me to. But they also didn't stop me. At first, I stayed with them, Judith and Paul Whitaker, my parents in name and in distance. I cooked. I drove Dad to cardiologist appointments. I reorganized the kitchen so Mom could find everything without digging through drawers. I also started working remotely for a Seattle-based marketing firm. Small clients. Flexible hours. It was something stable, something I could do while being there. That phrase, being there. It was supposed to mean presence, support, family. But in our house, it meant silence, compliance, unpaid labor disguised as love. On my second week back, Mom handed me a list of errands, dry cleaning, grocery run, picking up Bree's son from daycare, just while your father rests. It's too much for me lately, she said, folding the list like it was normal. And maybe it was. Maybe that's how it had always been, and I'd simply forgotten how deeply expectation burrows into routine. At Sunday dinners, nothing had changed. Aaron dominated the conversation with stories of his latest freelance gigs. Bree vented about screen time battles with her kids. And me, I cleared the dishes. Once I tried to speak up. I think I might rent a small apartment downtown, I said during dessert. Just to have some space while I work. My father paused mid-bite. So you're already planning your next escape, he said. Bree laughed into her wine glass. Aaron just shook his head. I wanted to explain it wasn't about leaving, it was about breathing, but I knew better. That kind of honesty had no place here. Instead, I smiled, offered to do the dishes, and went upstairs to cry in the guest bathroom where no one would hear me. That night, I texted a former colleague from Chicago. Ever feel like you came home just to prove you shouldn't have? She wrote back, every time I see my mother. The next day, I brought up a simple suggestion. Hey, maybe we could try splitting Sunday dinners. Bree could host every other week, or we rotate. Judith didn't even look up from folding napkins. You've been gone so long, Lauren. This is the least you can do. And that was the unspoken rule carved into every sigh, every side glance, every subtle withdrawal of warmth. No matter how much you give, you're still behind. No matter how far you go, you'll always owe us something. I thought I came back to help. What I didn't realize was I'd just re-entered the role they had waiting for me. My father ran a small insurance brokerage on the east side of Columbus Whitaker and Associates. It had been in our family for over 35 years. My grandfather started it out of a converted garage. My father moved it into a modest office suite near Broad Street. Everyone in our neighborhood knew the name. By the time I moved back, the sign out front was faded and the phones inside were quiet. The industry's changing, Dad said when I asked. These new digital platforms are undercutting everything. He said it like it was inevitable, like extinction. I offered to help not because I owed him, but because I knew how to fix things. That was my default position in life. Repair quietly, take no credit, and make sure no one gets uncomfortable. I didn't push. I just asked if I could take a look at the branding, the website, the client retention strategy. Eventually, he said yes more out of resignation than trust. Over the next 2 months, I worked late evenings redesigning his website, setting up automated client reminders, launching small local campaigns through social media. I even updated the dusty office signage and scheduled fresh headshots for his team, 2 part-timers who hadn't seen a raise in 3 years. Slowly, calls picked up. Leads trickled in. One day, he muttered, "Phone hasn't rung this much in months." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and made more coffee. Then Mom pulled me aside one Sunday after dinner. She looked tired, older somehow, even though she tried to hide it under lipstick and pearls. "There's something I need you to see," she said, slipping a manila envelope into my purse. Later that night, I opened it. Tax documents, vendor statements, bank letters. Most urgent of all, a foreclosure notice on the office lease dated 3 weeks prior. I felt a chill settle into my ribs. The business wasn't just struggling. It was sinking, and Dad hadn't told anyone. I confronted him the next morning gently. I brought spreadsheets and a proposed restructuring plan. I laid out steps, reduce square footage, consolidate services, let go of the print ad contracts that no longer made sense. He didn't yell. He didn't even look up. "You think because you designed a few websites you know better than me, I've been running this place longer than you've been alive." I expected resistance. What I didn't expect was how deeply offended he seemed not by the numbers, but by the idea that I was trying to lead, trying to steer something he saw as his name on the door. But eventually, the math forced his hand. The only way to restructure the debt was through a new loan. And because his credit was already strained and Aaron and Bree didn't qualify, the bank asked for a co-signer. That left me. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, the paperwork between us. "It's just a formality," he said. "The business will cover the payments. You won't owe a dime." I hesitated, because deep down I knew something was off. But deeper still, I still wanted to believe saving him might earn his respect. So, I said yes. 3 months after I signed the loan papers, the house felt different. Mom sent a text. Short, cold, family meeting. Sunday, 5:30. Everyone. No excuses, no endearment. No emoji sunflowers or XOXO, just that. When I pulled up, there were too many cars. Bree's van, Aaron's Jeep, Aunt Rochelle's old Camry. My stomach tightened. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the living room looked like a courtroom. Everyone already seated. My father in his recliner, my mother perched beside him, knees together, fingers locked tight. Aaron sat like a sentry. Bree looked through me. No one smiled. "We're glad you made time," Dad said, voice flat. "We have to talk." I didn't sit. No one offered a chair. "You've made a lot of changes," he continued. "The business, the image, the way we operate." Aaron leaned forward. "Our regulars say it doesn't feel like Whitaker Insurance anymore. They don't come in." Bree crossed her arms, eyes narrowed. "It's cold, slick, not like home." I opened my folder slowly. Data reports, client growth, positive feedback from new customers. Website visits are up. Lead conversion has doubled since March. "I thought." "We're not talking about metrics," my father snapped. "We're talking about damage." I swallowed. The room blurred a little at the edges. Uncle Dennis cleared his throat. "You never asked how we built things. You just came in. Like you knew better." "She made Dad get permission to approve expenses," Aaron added. "Like he worked for her." I looked at my mother. She wasn't crying. She just wouldn't look at me. I agreed to those terms Dad said bitterly because I had no choice. "You held your shiny credit score over our heads." I felt my breath catch. "I was trying to protect all of us," I said. "I didn't want anyone else to drown." Silence. Then my grandfather, whose hands had shaped the first office desk I ever sat behind, spoke softly. "We were proud of you once, but you've forgotten what family means." Something cracked in me. Not loudly. Just a hairline fracture I'd been ignoring too long. I shifted the folder in my hand. No one noticed. "You think I wanted control?" I asked quietly. "I wanted to help." "You asked, you signed." Bree stood up. "You inserted yourself. You made it about you. Like always. You ruined this family," Dad said, rising slowly. "You took what worked and twisted it." My heart pounded in my ears. "We trusted you," Aaron said. "You embarrassed us. You poisoned what Dad built Bree finished." Then came the sentence I still hear sometimes in dreams. "Get out." No one stopped him. No one said my name. No one asked if I was okay. I looked around once at faces I knew better than my own and realized they weren't shocked by what he said. They were waiting for it. So I placed the folder on the coffee table, turned, and walked out. And still, no one followed. The flight from Columbus to Seattle was uneventful, which felt wrong. I'd just been exiled from my family, but the plane still served ginger ale. The man next to me still watched a Marvel movie. The sky outside the window still stretched uncaring. I didn't cry until I reached the Airbnb, a second-floor studio near Capitol Hill with chipped tile in the kitchen and a futon that folded into a bed with a lurching groan. I sat down still in my coat and stared at the wall for nearly an hour, not thinking, not planning, just still. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in the living room. The same voices, the same faces, the same sentence. "You ruined this family." I'd left. I'd said nothing. I'd walked out the front door with my dignity intact, or so I told myself. But now, in a city where no one knew my name, that silence felt heavier than any accusation. The next morning, I did what I always did when things fell apart. I made a list. Call HR to confirm Seattle office transfer. Find permanent housing. Set up internet. Reopen my checking account under new address. Buy new dishes underneath, I scribbled. try not to look back. Easier said than done. Each task felt like digging out from under rubble only I could see. Even choosing a bath mat at Target felt paralyzing. Blue-gray. I stood frozen in the aisle for 10 minutes until a child nearby knocked over a display and I startled so hard I dropped the mat. It wasn't about the mat. It was about not knowing what I actually liked anymore. Every decision I'd made for years had been shaped by their voices by avoiding judgment, sidestepping conflict, staying appropriate. Who was I without that? One afternoon, I wandered into a local cafe just to sit somewhere I didn't have to explain myself. The barista had tattoos of birds across both arms and a nose ring shaped like a star. "First time here?" she asked, handing me a ceramic mug. I nodded. "First week in Seattle." She smiled, not politely, but warmly. "Then welcome. Everyone starts fresh somehow." Her name was Liv. She remembered mine the next day, and the day after. It was a small thing, but it was the first time in weeks that someone said my name without lacing it in disappointment. That night, I washed my new blue bath mat and laid it out in front of the shower. I touched it with my toes. It didn't match anything, and for once that felt perfect. It was a Thursday, 2 weeks after I'd started my remote schedule with the Seattle office. The coffee shop staff knew my name. I'd picked out new curtains. I was sleeping restlessly, but sleeping. And then I made a mistake. I walked into a phone store intending to upgrade my temporary SIM card to a proper plan. The clerk asked, "Want to keep your old number?" I froze. "Can I check the activity on it first?" He shrugged. "If you have the right ID." 30 minutes later, I sat behind the counter while he pulled up the log. His monitor turned toward me. A single screen full of missed signals. 53 missed calls. 26 voicemails. 9 text messages. All from Columbus. The first voicemail was my father's voice. "You need to stop this. This is childish. Call us." The second, my mother voice, thin but tight. "We're worried. This isn't helping anything." Third, Bree. "Seriously? You vanish and leave us with the fallout." I sat still. Let the clerk click through. By week 2, the tone had shifted. The edge was gone, replaced with confusion. "Where are you, Lauren?" Mom asked. "Are you staying with someone?" By the 3rd week, it was panic. "The office account's frozen," Aaron said. "You need to call us back. It's serious." Then came Bree again, softer this time. "I know you're mad, but Dad hasn't been himself. The bank's involved. We need help." And then week 4. My father's voice hoarse, unsteady. "Just call me. I need to explain." The most recent message was from my mother. "Lauren, they've arrested him. The IRS came this morning. Please, I don't know what to do." I didn't say anything. The clerk looked at me sideways, uncertain. "Want to print the texts?" I nodded. Back at my apartment, I spread the papers across the kitchen table like evidence from a crime scene. The messages read like a descent rage into confusion, confusion into need. One from Aaron, "You're part of this. Your name is on everything. Don't act innocent." From Bree, "They're seizing the office. The lawyer asked about your signature." And from Mom, "Please, baby, we didn't mean it. Come home." I leaned over the sink and stared at the faucet until my eyes stopped burning. They hadn't called because they missed me. They called because everything had collapsed without me, because the one they cast out turned out to be the one holding things up. And for the first time since leaving Ohio, I asked myself, would I pick up the phone if they called again? I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing: they weren't looking for reconciliation. They were looking for rescue. 2 days later, the phone rang again. Columbus area code. I picked up before I could talk myself out of it. Lauren speaking. A beat of silence. Then, finally, it was Bree. "Do you know how many people I had to call to find this number I didn't answer? Dad was arrested. Tuesday morning. IRS showed up with papers and questions. Fraud. Misuse of business funds." Her voice dropped. "And your name is still on the loan in case you forgot." I stayed calm. My lawyer hasn't. Everything's been documented. He has my signed agreement and all the broken terms. She scoffed. "So that's it. You just wash your hands of us, no?" I walked away from people who told me to get out. Remember? She was quiet. Then, you think this makes you strong. It just makes you selfish. I think it means I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who were never going to see it. The call ended there. No goodbye. 3 days later, an email landed in my inbox. The sender surprised me. Subject: In Seattle this weekend, would you meet for coffee? Just me. No expectations. It was from my mother. I stared at it for a long time, then replied 1 hour. Pike Place, Saturday, 2 p.m. I arrived early, chose a small table by the window close to the door just in case. She arrived 10 minutes late. Wore her old Sunday coat neat but tired. She didn't try to hug me. You look well, she said, sitting down. I am. We ordered tea. The silence between us was tight, but not hostile. After a few sips, she spoke. Your father was sentenced. 2 years, mostly probation. They seized the business, sold the house. I nodded. My lawyer updated me. She looked down at her napkin, folding and refolding the corner. You didn't come here to gloat. No. More silence. I honestly don't know how we got here. I met her eyes. Because no one ever stopped it. Because someone always had to take the blame. And I finally said no. She didn't argue, just nodded slightly. Then quietly, would you be open to keeping in touch? Just us. Calls. Nothing more. I looked out the window for a long moment, then back at her. I'd be open. But you have to understand, I'm building something here. Something healthy. And I won't go back to pretending I'm okay when I'm not. She took that in. No pushback, no guilt. Just a quiet I understand. I didn't know if she really did, but she didn't argue. And in my family, that was progress. We parted without a hug. She left through the front. I left through the side. 6 months after I left Ohio, Seattle felt like home in a way Columbus never did. My apartment was small, but it was mine. I chose the colors, the dishes. Even the old wooden desk by the window, sanded and repainted by hand on a rainy Sunday, felt like a reclamation. I'd adopted a senior cat from the local shelter. Milo, a one-eyed tabby who greeted me every evening with a gravelly meow and zero expectations. We understood each other. The marketing firm had officially offered me the lead role in the new Seattle office. I said yes without hesitation. I had new rituals now. Morning walks through Volunteer Park. Afternoons at the cafe where Liv still remembered my order. Quiet nights with books no one else had picked out for me. I hadn't heard from Bree. Not since the call. Aaron had stayed silent too. My mother called once a month. Short, careful conversations. No apologies, but no more denial either. My father never reached out. I didn't expect him to. The legal process had moved forward without me. My lawyer handled what needed to be handled. I paid what I was responsible for. No more, no less. And that was the shift, really. I no longer overgave. I no longer explained. I simply existed on my own terms. One gray October morning, I stood at the waterfront watching ferries cut across the Sound, my scarf tucked high against the wind. I thought about that night in Ohio, standing in a room full of people I once called family, hearing the words that had finally broken the spell. You ruined this family. Get out! And now, they hadn't unraveled because I left. They unraveled because I had been holding everything together and no one saw it. Or maybe no one wanted to see it. And that was no longer my burden to carry. I wasn't waiting for closure. I wasn't hoping for apologies. I had peace. Not the kind that comes with resolution or reconciliation. The kind that comes from knowing you no longer owe anyone your silence. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Thinking of you today. Hope you're well. I didn't overthink my reply. I am. Hope you are too. That was enough. For the first time in my life, I belonged nowhere but in my own skin. And that was more than I'd ever been given.